Welcome one and all to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. We're in day 3 of our RNC coverage. We have passed the halfway mark, and I've passed 80% of my ability to keep doing this. But anyway, we're very lucky that today is in fact still a big news Wednesday. I've blown right past the animation, but the important part remains, and that is Sharon Reed. Sharon, how's it going?
It's the biggest Wednesday, I think.
Big old Wednesday. We haven't spoken since the RNC began. Have you been following things at home? What have your impressions been? And obviously, we're coming out of a momentous weekend. What are your thoughts?
This production, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a lot of theater. Night 2, I have thoughts. Nikki Haley, others, but I'll save it. I'll save it until you get there. I'm just happy that you're doing well and drinking it in live.
Drinking it in live, yeah. No, it is an experience. It is an experience. I've given a lot of my thoughts. I'll give more today, and probably once I'm back in LA, even more. But yeah, it's an eye-opening experience. And with that, why don't we turn to day 2? We're not going to dive into all of the speeches or anything like that. If you're interested in our live commentary on the speeches, you should definitely tune in. After the Young Turks, we do hours of live coverage responding to all of the developments, all the speeches, and I will be participating again in that later tonight. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about one of the themes of night 2, and it'll be very clear in this video.
For leading us in this fight will be a man who, although wounded and facing danger, he stood up and raised his fist and reminded us that our people and our country are always worth fighting for.
I'll start by making one thing perfectly clear. Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
Florida is a solid Republican state. Now, electing Donald Trump gives us the chance to do this all across America.
Okay, so obviously that was awkward, and I'm not just talking about Ron DeSantis's continued inability to smile like an actual human being. I mean, like the context of it, where you have these former rivals, some of them from way back, some of them just ran against him in the primary, having to bend the knee, having to try to scrabble and claw for continued place of relevance in this party. Haley, I think, is the greatest example of that. Ron DeSantis obviously was, they had his feud with Donald Trump, but they sort of hashed it out over time. Haley stayed in the race longer, and up until just a couple of days ago, wasn't even slated to speak at the RNC. It was only apparently the events of last weekend that made it so that she would. And so my assumption is that she feared that she would be booed. And she was. It wasn't an overwhelming chorus of boos for Nikki Haley or anything like that, but there was definitely a mixture. And while she was giving her address up in the Fox News skybox, Vivek Ramaswamy and Sean Hannity they tried to distract the crowd from her speech by throwing mini footballs into the crowd. So, the calls for unity from Nikki Haley on the stage were not necessarily embraced by those in the audience, but that's what they were all saying last night. I just want to remind everyone of what they have said of the nominee in the recent past.
Many of the same politicians who now publicly embrace Trump privately dread him. They know what a disaster he's been and will continue to be for our party. Donald Trump can't win a general election.
Donald Trump was totally unhinged.
I will never stop until we keep a con man from taking over the party of Reagan and the conservative movement. He's a con man. He's a con man.
And it's almost like with Donald Trump, if you don't kiss the ring, you could be the best governor ever and he'll trash you. You could be a terrible, corrupt politician, but if you kiss his ring, then all of a sudden he'll praise you.
And so, look, obviously, there's always going to be a little bit of friction when you challenge someone. You run against them, and then eventually, the party generally comes together. The issue for these individuals, and it's not necessarily a huge career issue for them, is that they didn't just disagree with him on policy. I mean, they honestly couldn't if they wanted to have any chance to actually take him down. They had to try to take a swing at the core of his movement, and they were honest about what he was. They called him deranged. They called him a con man. They talked about all this stuff, the stuff that, JD Vance at one point was talking about very eloquently. And I don't know how you walk that back. I think that you just hope that everyone moves on. But Sharon, what do you make of it?
It reminds me of my daughter in the 6th grade. When 6th grade girls get into it, it can be a lot. And I stay out of it because in 10 minutes they'll be friends again. But I don't even know, as mean as 6th grade girls can be, that they say that, someone is mentally, they don't have the capacity to lead and those kinds of things. I think that it is falling in line and a little bit of fake news. I don't know that these people were ever going to be friends or go to dinner with one another. Well, DeSantis wasn't going to go to dinner with anyone. Okay, he's just a different kind of cat. But it's just surreal to me. There's people who still point to when Kamala Harris was running for president and she brought up the past and Joe Biden and busing and the like, and it stung. That is nothing compared to what you just reminded us, what you just played there. So it's bizarre. Yeah. It's wooden.
Well, and I think I'm glad that you pointed that out on the other side, because I think the reason it stung is because it's real. Like, people throw out, especially in the modern era, all sorts of insane slurs and attacks against the other side. Anything that you just saw them say against him, you probably hear in literally every Republican Party. They're calling each other deranged and they're calling each other con men and stuff like that. It's usually baseless. It was accurate. They were being honest and right when they said it. And so that makes it seemingly harder to walk back. And it's why, Nikki Haley, like I said, there were boos. There were people saying too little, too late. A convention official turned to her while Haley was speaking and said, "No boos." And you can ask for no boos, but clearly there were some boos. Not overwhelming. I think most people were, look, remember, they're pretty sure that they're gonna win in November. The mood is fairly jubilant. I think that helps to bridge the gaps in the party at least a little bit. But there's also, there's an undercurrent of vindictiveness, and they don't like that she tried to take down Trump. And so I understand that. We mostly have focused on her so far. I do want to talk a little bit about Ron DeSantis. This is not the convention that Ron DeSantis was hoping to have. He thought that this would be his coronation. He tried and failed to take out Donald Trump. Part of the reason why he failed is he's a very awkward person. And although his speech was well received yesterday, I noticed, and I think a lot of people noticed, some weird physical quirks of his. Take a look.
Donald Trump was our commander-in-chief. 4 more years of a weekend at Bernie's presidency. But just don't send any to Martha's Vineyard, then they get really upset. And impose gender ideology on everyone from our infantrymen to kindergartners. And we cannot let America down. And we demand term limits for members of Congress, bringing the administrative state to heel once and for all. We oppose any immigration that stands apart or in contrast to our American values. Let's make the 45th president of the United States the 47th president of the United States.
Occasionally, he was able to delay the lick. Ironically, I counted 47 licks, not 45. So look, there are downsides to the way that you hype a politician up to give a speech. They talk about how for Joe Biden, they give him caffeine or whatever. Well, clearly to get Ron DeSantis to speak, they smear peanut butter on his lips, and that's what makes his mouth move. But the issue is it's tasty, and so he just wants a little bit. He delivers a good line and then. So anyway, it's awkward and when he delivered a good line, and by the way, he delivered tons of lines that they ate up. It was just a bullet point list of the talking points that they like, the culture war stuff, the identity politics. But then he'd say the line and they'd clap and he'd pause, and he's just not a natural person. There's no charisma whatsoever. Sharon, what are your thoughts?
I think it was pudding, not peanut butter. We know he likes pudding and we know how he likes to eat it. So it could have been butterscotch pudding. He's just a different kind of cat. He's a little strange. And I'm sure he's worked with people. So this is perhaps a cleaned up version. You can deliver the lines all you want, but it only takes a little bit of, an anecdote about eating pudding with your forefinger or something. And it's a wrap. Remember what happened to Howard Dean when he did that high pitch, and people never lived it down. They can't like get over it. They can't look past it. He's still getting that, and I don't know what his place is. I think he will be the governor of Florida, but I don't see him as more than that. Although you're right, they did give him some cheers and applause, but I just think people are giddy, like you said.
Yeah. I've seen op-eds coming out of his speech saying, like now people are talking about, it was weird. The articles were termed that like they were talking about him as being the nominee in 2024, 2028. I don't know why are they talking about 2024? I'm pretty sure that's locked down. This is the convention after all.
Right.
But the idea clearly that he's harboring inside of himself is, okay, that was rough. I tried and I failed. But the next time around, I can do it. I can, go back to Florida and notch a bunch more culture war wins or whatever. And then by 2028, people will have forgotten what happened this time around. They won't be mad at me for challenging Trump. Trump might not literally be around by then. And so maybe he can take another swing at it. The issue for him is that he's not the VP. The intent is to elevate JD Vance to be the successor eventually. It's not a guarantee that that's what would happen. And you point out that sometimes these things stick to you, like the pudding or having capped a dog or something. And that is true for basically all politicians. It has never really worked for Trump. Trump has a million of those things and it's never really mattered. I think the question is, with Trump hugging JD Vance so close to him, does that give JD Vance some of that? Like, we're gonna find out all sorts of things now about JD Vance. There's already some that are bubbling up. Is he going to sort of like have the thing in his past that creates a stink that they can't get past? Him being the VP is no guarantee that he's going to be the successor, but it clearly gives him a leg up. The question is, like, if you were Ron DeSantis or if you were a Ramaswamy, what do you do between now and 2028 to nullify that advantage? And do you have any thoughts about that?
It's weird to me that we are still in a dog fight for 2024 and we have to go there with 20.
I know.
I mean, but we do. You do have to look ahead. And that's one side could have probably done that a little bit better than the other. This is about the future with JD Vance, as you mentioned. I just don't know how you overcome something like that, how you look beyond that. I think and I'm not trying to duck it, I think we really just have to let things play out for a little while and see where they're going to go before people can strategize and even think past it.
Yeah, I can only explain for myself, but the reason I immediately looked to 2028 is because 2024 is rough and I don't like it and I don't want to focus on it.
It's more pleasant.
But anyway, but that said, stay tuned everyone, because we've got some interesting polling data coming at the close of the first hour. But with that said, I want to turn away from those trying to, heal the divide. And we're going to turn to someone who, again, Kari Lake was not chosen as VP, and there's no guarantee that she's going to win her Senate race this time around, but she's not on the outs of the MAGA world. But that said, she is trying to make a mark, and here is the tone that she struck.
I don't welcome everybody in this meeting. You in this room, the guys up in the fake news, frankly, all right, frankly, you guys up there in the fake news have worn out your welcome.
So 2 takeaways from that. Obviously, the temperature has been taken down and unity has been achieved. We're attacking the media. And 2, they love the First Amendment. Oh, they love free speech. They totally love it. They're big fans of it. But anyway, that's standard right-wing talking point, and Kari Lake leaned very heavy into it. It was the first substantive thing that she said in her speech was that how dare there be media covering the RNC. Bear in mind, other than formally choosing the nominee and locking in the nominee, the point of a convention is for people to see your candidates and the speeches and for the word to get out. Attacking the media that is the ones making that possible seems ridiculous, but that's who she is. She doesn't have it in a lot of ways. Certainly she doesn't have it in terms of policy, but she gets that she's supposed to demonize the media, call them fake news and all of that. What do you think, Sharon?
She looks good and I like her haircut. And I don't mean to demean because, they always go for the looks with women, but she's just there's something about her that is, there's no range there. There's no range and I can't get past it. She got her speaking part, but what are we really going to do with Carrie Lake in any party at any time? It's just not convincing to me. And I just don't see it with her. And I don't want to keep repeating the same thing about her or others that you may go down the list with, but there's no place for her other than supporting cast, window dressing type of thing. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think that she had too big of an appetite. I think
that part.
Look, I'm a former broadcaster who is willing to ignore the fact that apparently I used to be a Democrat, I used to party with drag queens or whatever. Okay, forget all that stuff. I want power. Run for Congress. Like that already is jumping the line quite a bit, but that's the sort of thing that worked for Lauren Boebert, it worked for Marjorie Greene. They've already shown that you can just be photogenic, say some crazy. You don't need to have any governing experience or anything, no mastery of policy. You don't even necessarily need to be a good communicator, and you can get in at that level. But she told her state, no, day one, I'm in charge of this whole thing. That's crazy, and they rejected her. And now she's saying I should be one of the two most powerful politicians in this state on the federal level. And that seems kind of crazy, and they don't seem to be buying it. Depending on how November goes, she could prove us wrong and she could totally win. Ruben Gallego's only up by a couple of points, but she just does seem to like, it's a too big for your britches type thing. Like she's not that good. She's not that compelling to be able to skip so many of the intermediary steps.
Let her be an ambassador, okay?
Yeah, that
when this Senate thing, when this other thing doesn't work out, he'll give her something, but it needs to be something that, I mean, she's not even going to follow the diabolical plan, okay? So it needs to be something that, again, is just more pomp and circumstance. It's more of a window dressing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Ambassador, you pick the country.
I think that would totally work, and he would just choose a country that he wants them to receive her as ambassador as the insult it's intended to be. But anyway, look, I want to touch on two final points. So one, in terms of like unity and the tone, like we keep hearing the word, and that is as deep as it goes, the calls for unity. So Governor Jim Justice says that the country would become totally unhinged if Donald Trump is not elected in November. I'm going to say that I partly agree with that. They did become very unhinged when he wasn't elected in 2020, so it's entirely possible that could happen again. I don't think that's what he meant, but I think it's true. Bernie Moreno, US Senate candidate in Ohio. Let's see, Senator Rick Scott, Trump himself, all accused Democrats of destroying the country. Ted Cruz, by the way, just went off on like a sort of murder torture porn thing. Where he talked about Americans dying, murdered, assaulted, raped by illegal immigrants that the Democrats have released. Teenage girls and boys wearing colored wristbands are being sold into a life of sex slavery. And he went on and on and on about it. So again, the toning down the rhetoric, forget about it. It's not happening. Unity, as I said on the show yesterday, literally only means stop with whatever it is that you think and whatever it is that you want and get on board with us, or else potentially. There has not been a single concession. There has not been a hypothetical concession. There's not to say, you know what, here's what we've been pushing for. Some people think it's too radical, and in the name of unity, we're gonna dial it back. There has not been literally one example of that on anything, not a value, not a statement, certainly not a policy. And I don't know how much you can continue to sell the concept of unifying when it clearly means bow down to us and our agenda. Any final thoughts about night two?
Nikki Haley is just still on my mind. She said a lot of the right things, but what I'm struck by is I still see a woman whose father taught in South Carolina. He was at an HBCU where he clearly wanted to be. He was a talented educator. And here she is, this candidate and frankly politician now who really stands for nothing. 1 minute, she doesn't know about the roots of slavery. And the next, she's saying things like, Black lives are valuable. By the way, did they boo her at that point? She quickly said Black law
I didn't hear that
enforcement's
part,
but it's just so condescending. And it's more proof that she doesn't give a hoot. She really doesn't give a hoot about what I think of her. People who look like me think of her. Everyday Americans think. She just thinks that we can hold our nose and we're just going to forget about it or whatever. and go along with the con. And it just really, I mean, I couldn't show you my text that I was texting to a Republican friend of mine last night. It was improper of me, but I couldn't help it during her speech.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's just like you said that he's not fit to be commander-in-chief. If you believe that, then you can't endorse him. You said he's not fit. You didn't say he's not preferable. You said he's not fit. Like, is he or is he not? And if you didn't believe that, why did you say that? That's crazy to say that. So look, and by the way, you can try to take your party back from the brink. You can try to take down the figurehead, fail, and then that's it. You could hypothetically do that. Chris Christie is not here. Chris Christie tried to stop Donald Trump. He took swings at him, utterly failed, embarrassingly so. And that's it now. Maybe he'll go on CNN or something. Like, that should also be a possibility. The issue there's many issues with our politicians, but their unwillingness to ever just go back to having a regular life. The fear that they have to no longer be like in a bear hug with the locus of power. Look, it's not just that it's bad for the country. I would argue that it's bad for them. It makes her inauthentic, and people don't like inauthentic politicians, and so many of them thoroughly are, and they demonstrate it in moments like this. In any event, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we're gonna talk more about JD Vance and the racist attacks against his family that are already flooding it. Welcome, one and all. We're gonna read some of your comments. See what we've got. Zafad Bibelbrock says, "Oh, please post this mashup. I must share." I don't know if that's the mashup of the bending the knee or the tongue lashing mashup, the lash up. I don't know if it's that. But it's like halfway through his speech, I was already thinking we have to cut together a mashup of the tongue. It's just too much. Dragon with the Girl Tattoo says he's awkward because his feet hurt because of the high heels. I did not look to see if he was wearing his fancy shoes. I don't know. Holly Berry says, members comment, Carrie Lake is the most unauthentic person on the planet and people can see right through it. Yeah, I don't know that they see through it with her as much as some. I mean, she won the Republican primary to represent them in the Arizona Senate race. She could have been replaced. It seems like Donald Trump saw through it. He quickly tired of her hanging around Mar-a-Lago trying to gain his favor. So yeah, I think she's kind of in the middle of the pack in that respect. A lot of member gifting going on. Thank you to everyone for that. Dragon Dancer gifted a membership. Much appreciated, Dragon Dancer. Jan B gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. John Fox gifted a membership. Thank you. And Cosmic Dragon gifted a membership as well. Thank you to all of you. I've said a million times and I will say a million times more. We rely 100% on our members to make even just the regular operations of the channel and the network possible, let alone special coverage like this. And I mentioned, I think on yesterday's show, we've walked around the media row and there's, I think The Guardian is there, and I think Slate is there, and Democracy Now! Is nearby. And other than that, and us, that's it for anything that I recognize, at least, that isn't hard right. And there's a reason that more like progressive and leftist shows aren't here. It's expensive. The media has been absolutely destroyed algorithmically in terms of a lot of the economic stuff, but we can do it, and we can only do it because of you. We have that advantage, and thank you for giving us that advantage. Okay, let's see. Gabby Marita, hey Gabby, says the only job Carrie Lake is qualified for is the keeper of the nation's strategic Vaseline reserve. Damn, that's not bad. What, Brett? Nailed it, Brett says. That's good, that's good, thank you. Okay, Stickman, I mean, I denounced that and reject it, but that was good before I denounced and rejected it. Okay, Stickman Grit says in a super chat, John, if we don't win this year, there aren't going to be elections in 2028, at least not ones that matter. I'm glad that you added that last part because I think the horror story that people sketch out is no elections. And that's a great way to hold on to power, is to not have elections anymore. But a better way is to have elections that can't be won by anyone other than those in power. And that's not impossible to set up. So look, we cover the state level bills to attempt to suppress the vote, make it more difficult for different communities to vote and everything. I fully expect that there will be some sort of federal bill. It's one of the reasons why not only is it important to win the presidential race, but if it doesn't work out at the presidential level, super critical to win at least control of one chamber of Congress to make that sort of bill significantly harder to pass. Again, not impossible. Precedent might not count for much. By the way, I wanted to give Kaladin, do you have a Blue Apron gift card? If you don't, you now do. I no longer have the comment, but it was oh yeah, just like Russia wants unity with Ukraine. And I love that, yeah, that's what it means. It means we're done with the disagreement, we're done with the debate. I define you as having lost, now you are going to give in to us, that's what it is. So Kaladin, Blue Apron gift card, send an email to rewards@trtnetwork.com and they'll get you hooked up. If you do already have one, sorry, unfortunately, you can only have the one, but I did appreciate your comment, so thank you for that. Okay, we only have a few seconds left. More news coming up after this. Okay, everybody, if you're just joining us now, please hit the like button if you haven't already as we roll into our second story.
JD Vance also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names. So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist or something. But it's like, who is this guy really? Do we really expect that the guy who has an Indian wife and named their kid Vivek is going to support white identity?
Okay, I love that he threw in, this isn't an attack just because I'm a racist. He has it as a given that he is a racist, but he's attacking JD Vance and his family for more than just that. And he defined it just racism, that's all it was. It does come down to the racism because that's what it is. And as JD Vance was elevated to the VP nominee, a lot of people on the right discovered for the first time that he has a family and they exist, but they're not the sort of people that some of them would prefer that he would be. Here is a picture of JD Vance and his family. Now, I can give you a lot of reasons that I think JD Vance would be a terrible VP, would be an absolutely worse president. You might even define as a reprehensible human being. But there's nothing in that photo that is bad in any way. He has a family. They seem to love each other. He's been with his wife for 10 years. And if you are some sort of like crazy right-wing identitarian or whatever, like one of the things you probably love about JD Vance is how he's a Christian nationalist. He says and she says that it's due to her advocacy for him to explore his Christian heritage more. Like he has that because of her, the one that you're considering some sort of like race traitor to the side. So it's such a weird self-destructive attack to try to take down JD Vance's family of all things. But here is a little bit more of his attempt to do just that.
White people are being systematically replaced in America and Europe through immigration and to a much lesser extent due to intermarrying. This guy has a non-white wife and a kid named Vivek. This guy is going to be a defender of white identity? I don't think so. This guy's going to defend American identity? If he does, it's going to be no better than any of these other civic nationalists like Vivek Ramaswamy. How else could you countenance American identity if you have a mixed up family like that?
Very bizarre pronunciation of that word aside. Hey, what do you know? He was able to fit in an attack against another Indian American, Vivek Ramaswamy. Again, I disagree with Vivek Ramaswamy in a lot of different ways. The national origin of his ancestors has nothing to do with it, literally nothing to do with it. By the way, he said not only would he not be able to defend or advocate for white identity, but not even American identity. His wife is an American citizen. Now, is she an American citizen in the way that they want to be legal? Perhaps not. That does cause a little bit of trouble with Project 2025. I mean, they want to get rid of birthright citizenship and all that. But that said, she's a freaking American. That's who she is and what she is. Now, I want to be very clear. We have other online trolls and randos and extremists and everything that are echoing these, and they've been going around for the last day or two. This is not like official RNC chatter or anything like that. He's not speaking, thankfully. They realize that they have to present a less insane version of the GOP. So Nick Fuentes is not at the RNC, at least as far as I've seen, he's not gonna be here. But that said, this is what is bubbling up on the right on social media. And Sharon, I would love your thoughts.
I want to thank you for putting up the family picture of JD Vance because I think it's important. I think it's important what you just went and chronicled there. It made me so sad. I actually felt sorry for JD Vance and his wife. And then I remembered and got angry because I saw two beautiful children there, okay? And this is the party that JD Vance wants to take over. I mean, let's be very clear. He wants to eventually be the leader of the free world and take over as well the Republican Party. But this kind of sick, pathetic, bottom of the barrel type of venom and racism. Thank you for at least saying it's not just because I'm a racist. Of course I'm that, but I have real concerns about America. The argument doesn't even fit. If you want to be evil, there's a way to kind of do it so that everything lines up and the math is mathing. She's a citizen, like you said. This is so sick. But again, Vivek, JD, Nikki, I don't know why you would leave this kind of legacy or join this kind of hatred. Because you can say that there's hatred in this party when your children are going to grow up and see this. What does that say? Come on.
Well, you say rhetorically you don't know why, but you do kind of know. I have a couple of hints. It's green and it looks great when you have a stack of it with a rubber band tied around it. That's why I think that they would be willing to sign on to this. But I'm going to give you some more. Some of these are characters that we've talked about before. Some aren't. Tweets like this. It's just a picture of JD Vance and his wife. And the caption is, JD Vance's wife is Indian, by the way. To which Randy Trable says, she has more European physiognomy. I'm not even familiar with that word because I'm not an insane race scientist or whatever. Her bloodline is probably a mix of early Macedonian invasions. And if I am understanding the racism here, okay, not ideal, but there was some colonization. So that makes it a little bit more acceptable. It seems like that's what they're saying. Stu Peters, literal Nazi that we've talked about before on the show, says, he talks about the family and then says, he's not one of us. Again, he is in what appears to be a loving long-term marriage that produced 3 children. As the party says that not enough people are getting married, not enough people are having enough kids. He did that. And they're saying, oh, no, you did it the wrong way. Shouldn't have done that. You're starting to see some of the reason why people don't like this political movement. But anyway, like again, it is so aside from the actual reasons to oppose him as an individual or a politician. It's predictable but sickening. By the way, like making these sorts of statements, like saying, like literally like saying there should not be race mixing, the term that they use or whatever. And bear in mind, I am in a mixed race marriage. I don't understand how anyone could have any kind of problem with that. It has literally nothing to do with anything. Look at polls of what the American people thought about that up until not too many years ago. It wasn't that rare, even within the last 20 years. And I don't think most people would have been comfortable talking about it, posting comments online or whatever. This is a reminder that some people are actually more emboldened to give these sorts of opinions as they've become more rare. But Sharon, any final thoughts before we move on?
Well, and what they're really saying in these troll-like comments is that, we don't like mixed race and everything, but at least she's less offensive because she appears to have some, colonizer blood running through her veins. And it's sick. The best thing I heard you say was that Americans didn't freely speak out loud about it. They're doing so now. There's too many who are doing so now.
Yeah. And by the way, everyone, you need to prepare yourself because she is going to be delivering an address to the RNC today. Reports seem to indicate that she is not particularly interested in being like a big public part of politics and all that. But we'll evaluate her speech based on what she says, but it will almost certainly come with strike back online. They're going to be even more enraged to see her speaking at an event like this. And so here's thematically the transition that we're about to make. They see her as lesser because of her skin. The sick thing that I think is worthy of some criticism is that on a fundamental level that he would never admit to, JD Vance sees her as lesser because it's a woman. And so we're gonna turn to that right now. An actual good reason to criticize the guy who could become president. We don't know as much about JD Vance as we do about Donald Trump, but it does seem that he has some of Trump's savviness. He understands what to focus on in politics and in his speeches, and he also understands what to try to hide. And that includes some of his, according to him, core political beliefs. And one of the things that we've been focusing on our coverage of JD Vance is what he thinks about abortion and related reproductive issues, including IVF, access to contraceptives and those sorts of things. He is, in short, spoiler alert, an absolute radical, more so than a Donald Trump, more so than many of the politicians on the right that we talk about on a daily basis. And if you had gone on his website, let's say 2 days ago, you'd have seen this. It just says, end abortion, I'm 100% pro-life. He's stealing my catchphrase there, but he says, I believe that abortion has turned our society into a place where we see children as an inconvenience to be thrown away rather than a blessing to be nurtured. And as we've already described to you, he is against exceptions for rape and incest as well, putting him on the extreme radical end of even his party. Very few Americans agree with him, but that's the position that he has. And it would be one thing as a country if, well, that Donald Trump obviously helped kill Roe v. Wade and JD Vance is even more radical. Okay, that's what the election can be about in part on that policy. But they're not interested in that. He has that opinion. He's given no indication that he's changed his mind on any of that, but he would really prefer that you not know about it because that section of his website that we talked about, you can't see that anymore because he's the nominee and they need to start cleaning up his image. So his whole website just now redirects to Donald Trump's website. And so if you go searching for his track record, not even just on this, on a number of different issues that he used to brag about, you're not gonna find it anymore. And they're going to be attempting to manage and clean up his image as much as they can. It's gonna be difficult because he's been very clear about this. He's even previously said, abortion was the first political issue I can ever remember caring about. And even after 20 years, it still shocks me that progressives just ignore there's an innocent life involved. I would say if you're so focused on innocent lives and if you're 100% pro-life, why is it that you seem to have no problem whatsoever with the deaths going on in Ukraine, the deaths going on in Gaza? He does not care at all. He says that we are not nearly as deferential to Israel in their strategy in Gaza. So again, 100% pro-life means a certain thing and not anything else. But that said, Sharon, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, and he's also not interested in talking about kids dying in schools either. He's not pro-life enough to think about that. I do think he is radical and dangerous, but I also, again, I don't know how deep it goes because he's so, I don't want to overuse the word evil, but diabolical perhaps, that he will pivot on a dime just because the ultimate goal is what's important here. So I don't know how much further. I know it's going to be difficult for people to fathom it. He could be even worse than that. Or he could be moderate in some ways that we don't know. Whatever gets him across the finish line and gets him to be able to seize power is what he's capable of. And that to me is super, super dangerous. That comes with your warning label.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So hypothetically, I don't actually believe this, but if you were worried about what he could be as VP or as president, one thing that might make you feel better is he is so ready to just completely turn on a dime. Everything that he says is like his core first political values. Maybe he never meant it. Maybe that was artifice just as much as the current iteration of who JD Vance is artifice. Maybe like a lot of these politicians, he literally doesn't mean any of this. And he just likes to put on a nice suit and live in a nice house and go to parties and eat caviar and whatever. And he will say literally whatever he needs to say at any given point to get that. If he needs to cozy up to Paul Ryan 10 years ago, that's what he'll do. That's what he did. If you need to cozy up to Donald Trump now, that's what he'll do. And that's what he's doing right now. I don't necessarily believe that, but if that brings any solace to anyone, maybe it's true. Anyway, with that said, we are gonna stick on JD Vance a little bit. It's gonna seem like we're taking a diversion, but we will return to him. I wanna jump first though into our C block. Whenever you're ready, you can launch into this video.
I wouldn't want to be any of these globalist senators or people when this goes down because you know what's going to happen because people know you did it and they know that there's no choice. So you start this full hot red war and you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. And I'm shooting you straight, New World Order. Shooting you deadly straight.
Okay, so that is about as clear threat of violence, not necessarily from him, but for anyone watching the live stream, he is laying out that here's a variety of different groups of people that should be terrified for their life. And I guess this is, again, a part of the lowering the temperature, the getting rid of the crazy rhetoric, I suppose. He says, I wouldn't want to be with any of these Silicon Valley people when this goes down because your security hates your guts. Bear in mind, Elon Musk, one of these Silicon Valley guys, is pledging $45 million a month to Donald Trump. Many other Silicon Valley guys, crypto guys and all that are way on board with Donald Trump. But I guess they should be worried because they could be killed at any moment because Alex Jones thinks that they're globalists or something. I wouldn't want to be any of these globalist senators or people when this goes down because you know what's going to happen because people know you did it and they know that there's no choice. A 20-year-old Republican did it. A 20-year-old conservative did it. Not a globalist, not a Silicon Valley guy, not a senator, not people, not they. He did it, that one individual. But again, saying that, grappling with that is complex and he doesn't have the mind for it. And it also just doesn't play into the political narratives that he wants to focus on. So instead, he takes his audience and he redirects them back to the globalists and the international conspiracies and all of that with a nice, healthy side dish of some people need to die. What do you think, Sharon?
Well, and he's activating people. He's activating people who are predisposed or have something in them that triggers and they go out and act upon it. He uses it like, this is a warning. I'm just warning people, however nutty the things he's talking about are. But it's a dog whistle to let's get after it. Let's go find Zuckerberg or whoever else, and let's figure out how to neutralize them. And it's just, I understand that we have free speech in America, and I don't want that to change. But I don't know how to control this kind of activation of evil.
He says, you start this full hot red war and you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. And I'm shooting you straight, New World Order, shooting you deadly straight. So is he gonna be banned from Twitter again? Because Elon Musk has used the excuse that random people that he bans are calling for violence. So you can't do that. That's one of the few restrictions they have. So is he gonna be banned? I'm kind of doubting it at this point. It's an obvious call for violence. Completely ignoring the nature of the actual person that did it and trying to turn to violence against people that have literally nothing to do with it whatsoever. But with that said, I want to turn now to the connection between the last two figures that we have. JD Vance, apparently in video that's now come out, big fan of Alex Jones. Makes a few jokes as expense, but also appears to be a fan of him. Take a look.
Got myself into a little hot water last week because I made what seemed to me a plainly obvious observation that Alex Jones, the InfoWars guy, is a better source of information than Rachel Maddow, the MSNBC gal. Now, some people said, well, JD, you're just trolling. Well, yeah, of course I was just trolling. But that doesn't mean what I said is in any way untrue.
Now, that was a video from 2021, important context, but also bear in mind, it wasn't a video from 2001. 2021 is after what, 10, 15, 20 years of Alex Jones's violent anti-Semitic conspiracy theories of him, how many years of him hounding the families of those who died in Sandy Hook, of rallying his supporters to drive them out of their homes and make their life a living hell. He knows all of that. He knows all about the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jewish billionaires and all that. He knows that, and he's still lauding Alex Jones. Now look, he's doing that because he knows that Donald Trump also was a fan of Alex Jones. He knows that a lot of right-wingers are fans of Alex Jones. They don't mind the violence, the conspiracy theories, or the anti-Semitism or whatever, but he also is supposed to be an intellectual, and I believe that he's more intelligent than the average Republican, and yet there he is saying, I want you to believe that I think this guy's reputable. He's a truth teller. You should listen to what he has to say. Sharon?
These people. Look, the catering to Donald Trump and his affections is a recipe for disaster, okay? Particularly when his affection changes from day to day, okay? And I think you have to go with the Melania approach. Just stay in this lane. What do I mean by that? Melania is not, sometimes she doesn't hold his hand if she doesn't feel like it, and she doesn't even show up, okay? She's not on the list. So I just think this is We got it. He's your God, and this is what you're doing, and everything has to be woven into a Trump-like narrative. I've never seen anything like it. Not with Reagan, not with Obama, not with either one of the Bushes, not with anyone except for this one guy and the offshoots. And it is scary.
It's incredibly bizarre. I don't know. I wonder if through the course of the rest of our life, we'll ever see a movement like this. Like, there were obviously people that like these politicians you talked about previously, but there's never been a cult-like attachment like this.
Nope.
People really liked Obama. But before Obama got inaugurated the first year or so, I really liked him. I had a lot of faith in him. I really like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
It's simply not the same. It's exponentially more deranged.
Deranged.
But we'll
That's
see.
the word.
In any event, we're gonna take our second break of the hour. When we come back, new polls, dramatic news, potentially good news for the Democrats, potentially bad news for Donald Trump. We'll break it down after this. Nope. Anyway, everybody, welcome to the behind the scenes. I was seeing a shot of right on the other side of this. So we're gonna try to interview her. Maybe I can get a selfie. I might try to do that. But anyway, we're gonna get into some of your comments first. Thank you for bearing with us in this chaotic environment. Let's see what's going on out there. Huang Jun and the members' comment says, to quote Trey Crowder, JD Vance is a sycophant with less integrity than a Boeing 737. That is good. I wish I still had a Boebert gift card to give you, because that's a good one. I do appreciate that. Also, I flew here on 2 737s. That was exciting. Anyway, Kara says, beyond DJT's personal racism, this is why he was never going to pick a black VP. I don't think never going to. There would have been that sort of reaction, but I think, look, he seems to really like having Ben Carson around. I think that was certainly a possibility. I'm sure that he considered several, and I don't think that proves that there's a lack of racism. There's certain avenues where you're acceptable, I think. Pee Wee Shuttlepants says Fuentes would make Hitler blush. I'm not sure about that. I don't think Hitler would be any more comfortable around him than most people probably are. But anyway, Edward Russell, member for 30 months, says, wait, in regard to the colored wristbands on teen girls and boys, did Ted Cruz see the line for a rave and get horribly, terribly, yet somewhat amusedly confused? I have no idea what that was a reference to when he said it. I'm assuming something 50-50 chance it's complete conspiracy that has to do with like Etsy or something. I don't know, but that's why I didn't comment on it. It's possible that it's totally legit. So, and I don't know, so I'm not gonna comment. Gail Hefner, member for 43 months, just gave a bunch of hearts, and I love it. Thank you for that. Roger Harris is a member for 41 months, says, from the womb to the tomb, Roland Martin, if you're really pro-life. Yeah, they don't mean that. They don't mean that at all. No. It's a tagline, it's a brand, it's eat fresh. That's all it is. Doesn't mean that the food is fresh. It just sounds good when you put it in a commercial. And I like Subway, but that doesn't mean the bread is fresh. Anyway, Tracy Ravenhawk, member for 19 months, says, how is the smell in there with all the garbage people? Thanks for your work, John, thank you. Actually, Brett and I were just talking before the show. So obviously, this Friday I'm gonna be traveling back. Yaz is gonna be leading the show and it's gonna be awesome. And she's gonna do garbage people. But I think Brett and I might do a special RNC edition of the segment. So tune in tomorrow for that. It'll be just specific to this. And by the way, to the producers, you don't have to make a poll for it. But anyway, Chrissy F sent a super chat saying, it's not cheating if you spread peanut butter all over your, no, that's a quote from Road Trip, which I love that movie. I don't remember that quote. Also gross. Anyway, and Tara says in a super chat, please call and write your Democratic representatives, both state and federal, requesting Biden release the electors for an open convention. That's a perfectly good piece of advice. And we're gonna be talking about that subject on the other side of this. Stabbity, stab, Dragon says, denouncing and hilarious. Denouncing and rejecting the truth is what the Republicans do, John. I agree. Look, I will say, in the wake of what happened this weekend, there are a lot of people that prefer a convenient narrative to what appears to be true, and it is not exclusively on any one side of the aisle. I'm not saying it's equally distributed either, by the way, but yeah, we have to get better at accepting reality. We don't have to love reality, and you can try to change reality, but rejecting it outright, I don't think is good for anybody. Anyway, with that said, we have an exciting story to close the first hour. We'll see you after this.
The bread's
Welcome. Sorry, what's that, Sharon?
Oh, sorry. I was reflecting on the bread not being fresh at Subway. I didn't realize I was speaking out loud. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, don't worry. It's still good.
It's good. Yeah.
The tuna is still amazing, but anyway, it just isn't fish.
Apologies.
Okay, Brett gave me a look when I lauded the tuna. Anyway, we have one more story to close out the hour. Thank you, everyone, for being here as we're doing our live RNC coverage. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and we're gonna jump into. There's breaking news here. I didn't realize the producers had put this in here. Okay, then I will reframe the story starting with that. Breaking news live as we're doing our coverage in the RNC. Adam Schiff calls for Biden to drop out of contention to be the Democratic nominee. Says our nation is at a crossroads. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our democracy, and I have serious concerns about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump in November. That is fascinating because I understand that simply because we're talking about this topic, a lot of people are probably either mad at us or not tuning in at all. And I would assume that the Venn diagram of those people and people who generally feel pretty good about Adam Schiff is not necessarily a circle, but it's circle-ish. Adam Schiff is like, he's one of those very Biden-y centrist CNN, MSNBC Democrat. He's not a progressive or anything like that. Now, he is running in a race this year. And in theory, if the election goes really poorly, is it impossible that Steve Garvey could beat him in California? I think it's unlikely. But I would say that this statement makes it seem as if he doesn't believe that it's incredibly unlikely. And so that's a pretty high profile Democrat to call for him to do that. Arguably one of the most high profile. Sharon, what do you make of this breaking news?
That it's not going away. Okay, it did seem like with this being the Republican convention and things he did some decent interviews talking about the President Biden. But for someone of Adam Schiff's caliber and profile to now be saying this, precisely when he's saying this, this is going to lead to something that is, if not already chaotic, civil war-ish. We're moving into this territory where one side is not going to let it go and neither is the other. And I don't know where the Democrats are going to land on this.
Yeah, I think, look, I've given people basically day-by-day updates of what my gut says about it. It really did seem like if the strategy is to just wait things out, then the horrendous attack this weekend plays into that strategy. The RNC already played into the strategy because there's gonna be a lot of focus on that, understandably, rather than on the Democratic side of the aisle. And so it really did seem like it was dying down. Now we hear this morning that Nancy Pelosi is back on the phones trying to rally support against him. There's these leaks coming out of these phone calls that did not go well with different groups inside of the Democratic Party. You had the Lester Holt interview where he did have a couple of good lines, and he had a speech where he talked about the Trump black jobs line, and that was well received. But there does seem to be a little bit of pressure building once again. We're gonna have to see if the final days of the RNC distract people from that, or if the Democrats can sort of reach a critical mass to once again, place potentially effective pressure on Joe Biden. But I think that Adam Schiff, lining up in that group, it's no longer not just 19 Democrats, it's 20, it's 19, and one is Adam Schiff. So that's something. That said, I want to move to the polls that I was very excited to talk about. Bad polling news for Donald Trump, hypothetically. Bad polling news if the Democrats succeed, the Democrats who are trying to push out Joe Biden, if they succeed. And we know that this is something that Donald Trump is aware of, that if Joe Biden is replaced, that's gonna be bad for him, because he continues to truth about it. Despite his new pro-unity stance, he truthed, from a political standpoint, an unprecedented event is happening. The Dems are trying again to get Biden off the ballot. He's not 100% wrong, but it is fairly unprecedented. That is true. And they are trying to do that. We don't know how successfully. We'll return to that. But here is the new poll. So this is 15,000 voters in 7 different battleground states. This is a massive sample, and it's the most consequential election. And so elections that are happening in 2024. So Politico is reporting alternative Democratic candidates run ahead of President Biden by an average of 3 points across the battleground states. Nearly every tested Democrat performs better than the president. This includes Vice President Harris, who runs better than the president, but behind the average alternative. The strongest potential candidates they polled are Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. All four roughly outpaced Biden by roughly 5 points across the battleground states that were tested. And they also break down where that newfound support, or where the increased support versus the president comes from. Some comes from winning undecideds and those previously supporting a third party candidate. Some actually pull some votes from Donald Trump. All candidates continue to hold the Democratic base. There is no indication in the polling that were the Democrats to replace Joe Biden, Democrats around the country would just throw up their arms and be like, it's too chaotic, I can't figure it out, I'm out of the election. And they say that voters clearly are looking for a fresh face. Those more closely tied to the current administration perform relatively worse than other tested candidates. And that's always been my theory about Vice President Harris. For all of her other benefits, she would have some of the status quo stink kind of on her just because she was there for it, even if it wasn't her fault or she wasn't responsible for it. So that's a lot. Not necessarily great news for Joe Biden as the Democrats try to push him off the ticket. But Sharon, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think you're right too. And I'll start backwards with the VP. How do you shake off the stench of incumbency, the old guard? It's going to be difficult, not impossible. I wish I could have seen, I feel like these are the same polls when he was deciding if he'd run again. These people they weren't too keen on Joe Biden in the first place. And now here we are with this. But I just, polls can shift, polls can change. I think the current president has to stop whispering in these one-on-one interviews. They're not saying that because they are saying what you're revealing. And they do have to be listened to, but I just can't call it. And you can't always go by the polls too. We've learned that because people are more savvy and they like being devilish and kind of, sending pollsters up and down and spinning them around. But
that's true.
This is a problem. Any way you slice it, it's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. Also, by the way, you throw a jack onto the end of that, and it's the best Biden impersonation the Damage Report has ever seen. The whispering. Why don't you talk about that? That was pretty good. And by the way, I want to be very clear, as I've said, I am not one of the people that says that if he is not replaced, that's it. There's no chance. I don't believe that. I believe that the chance is not good enough. That's why I've been personally advocating for it. But I don't think it's a 0% chance. I don't think it's a 5% chance. Candidates are super important, obviously, in elections. But in presidential elections, there are tons of fundamentals that do affect the outcome. Now, you would expect them to be reflected in the polling right now. And so that still doesn't look very good. But there is still some time. And so, but that doesn't mean that it should be inevitable or that they have to stick with him. So we'll see. We're going to see. Today's a critical day. I think this week is critical. And also, I want to say there is some indication that Biden gets that he needs to do more to win over some of these voters. And so he says he's calling for a 5% cap on annual rent increases. And he's also set to announce support for major reforms to the Supreme Court. Now, we're also going to be super clear. Would he actually do this? I don't know. Would any of it pass? Definitely not. But he is at least saying some of the right things, which is an indication that he understands the tenuous position he's in. That said, that's all the time we have for the first hour. More to come in the aftermath after this. Welcome back, one and all, to the Aftermath. John Iadarola here, Sharon Reed remotely. Sharon, thank you for being here. These are momentous times, and thank you for commenting on them with me.
Thank you for going on the road to do America's business, to report the truth, the facts, and well, keep us safe. I really think you're keeping us safe with your reporting.
I think you're going too far.
Okay.
But thank you. I think that's ridiculous from you. But anyway, thank you.
Maybe.
No, I'm very glad to be here. I've already mentioned on the show, super excited that TYT is once again doing convention coverage. I will say it's fun to travel. It's a little bit difficult being away from the family. It's the longest I've been away from Reina since she was born. But other than that, it's very exciting, and particularly to be here with this group of people. Okay, that said, we're gonna get back into the news in just a sec. First though, I want to read a few comments. Wolfie's Meows Dragon has been here for 36 months and says, did y'all hear about Kyle Gass from Tenacious D? I used to love them, but when you're kind of famous, you need to remember what's an inside thought. Anywho, love you guys. I saw that there was something about them and they like canceled the tour. I don't know what the comment was. So I apologize for my inability to comment on that. Let's see, Stabbity, Stab Dragon. I am not going to read that. Thank you for the super chat. And it references something about the congresswoman across the aisle from us right now. Anyway, Alexander Pontier says in a super chat, I can't remember who suggested it, but Biden needs to drop out right before Trump's speech on the last day of the RNC. I'd love to watch Trump whine about his ratings drop. I will say not gonna happen, but that would be an interesting strategy. And I think it would be at least somewhat, like if he did a primetime address to counter program it, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, let's jump into our Aftermath stories, starting with this.
We're tracking all sorts of things, among other things, the fashion of the delegates. And I want to point out the latest trend that we spotted. This is Joe Neglia from
Tempe, Arizona.
This is your first convention?
Well, the first one I attended. I was elected in 2022, but that one was canceled because of COVID.
And I noticed what you're wearing on your right ear.
This is the newest fashion trend. I'm getting this going. Everybody in the world is going to be wearing these pretty soon. It's the latest thing. My wife tells me I dress like an engineer, but I'm setting new fashion ground here. So.
And you just made this in your hotel room today with an envelope or what?
No, I folded it up on the bus on the way here.
Very cool. But anyway, look, I'm gonna keep it real. The guy it's tongue in cheek. That he's talking about how he dresses like an engineer, and he's obviously mimicking the bandage that Trump has been seen now 2 nights running at the RNC with. That said, it is actually becoming a trend here, whether he intended it to or not. Here's a woman wearing what looks to be a tissue on her right ear. I think it's literally just tissue. It might be very sheer tape that is taped there, but you can see here's another woman wearing, I think, an actual full bandage across her ear. Here is a man wearing an American flag Band-Aid on the tip of his ear. I think that is a dangerous path to take with this particular trend because it might be seen to be implying that Trump could have gone in a more patriotic angle and declined to, and you're the true patriot and he's not. So I would go down that path. That seems risky. But anyway, I don't know which of them are serious about this and which are tongue in cheek. This is an environment that is hard to read. It's rabid and enthusiastic, and some of these people are literally insane. That said, I want to close with one more example. Here's a video for you. Now, some of you might think that is a man doing cosplay as Uncle Sam. No, we checked it. That is actually Uncle Sam in that video. It is the legit Uncle Sam. Anyway, Sharon, we love to break down fashion trends here on the Damage Report. What do you think about this one?
Again, I sense some cult-like behavior here. You remember those bracelets that people, and I'm not casting aspersions, but they were like, what would Jesus do? You remember everyone had those little bracelets, not everyone, but a lot of people were wearing them. And it just became a thing. And maybe I'm making too much of it. But when they put these bandages, was it the left ear or the right ear? It was the right ear, right? So you gotta place it, yeah, it's the right ear.
Yeah.
I just think that they're doing too much to pay homage to this. The next thing you know, he's a war hero. No, we're glad that the former president did not die at the result of an assassin, but he also is not a war hero. In fact, there's the whole bone spurs thing where he wouldn't go. But I just think let's come on, okay? Let's stop this. You're wasting tape and band-aids and a lot of things. It's not necessary.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Look, at the convention, if you just want to have fun in a variety of ways, this is the place that the biggest geeks in politics get together. I understand that. And people are very enthusiastic. Most of them are chosen because they're so enthusiastic. So you can't be surprised by this stuff. I've seen worse fashion trends at conventions before. Everybody, Google what t-shirts get sold at places like this. I have one actually at the studio that I would not wear in public because it's so profane. But anyway, I would just like to throw out one little thing. And to the audience, please let me know if you think that I'm being a D here. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm being too extreme. And if I am, I'm sure I'll get a look from Brett. But like a person died and 2 other people suffered horrible injuries, and you're commemorating the boo-boo. Person's life is lost, and you're like, let's focus on the. I don't know. That seems weird. Look, we've been critical of a lot of the statements about like the hand of God sheltering him while it allows bullets to pass by and kill other people. Like, I just don't like, people don't seem to think about what they're saying when they say things or what they're doing when they do things. They're just like, oh, here's one thing it means, and I like that, and that's enough. But I think it's sending a pretty disgusting message. I'm not saying they're intentionally doing that. And as I said, I gave the guy credit for being tongue in cheek, but I also think that that's a natural consequence of what you're doing. Anyway, quick thought, Sharon?
No, I think you're exactly right. And yes, thank you for reminding us that people lost their lives, others were hospitalized, and everything is not all about the former president, and it's not funny. And I'm sure those people who are grieving that loss of life and wondering what's next wouldn't appreciate it either. I'm not trying to say that this is the worst, as you kind of noted, but let's move on from that.
Yeah, it's super fast. Like, I never try to speak for like the families of people who've like suffered horribly or whatever. I always give them total license. You can respond however you want, even in ways that I find reprehensible normally. And by the way, the family of the individual who died, they don't seem to like Biden. Biden called them almost immediately to offer condolences. They weren't interested. They didn't want to talk to him, which is their right. And Trump took a couple of days to call them, which seems odd. But anyway, he did it, and they seem to really like it, and they're totally free to do that. But that said, like, if it was me and I had lost my family member and I saw people commemorating the boo-boo, I wouldn't like that. I mean, already so much of the societal conversation about it is about the person who suffered almost the least out of the story. And honestly, if you're talking in a macro sense, has not overall suffered, likely has benefited from it. Only physically suffered in the most minor way. And to see that being so obsessively covered when you lost a person, a heroic person, I don't love it. I don't love it. But again, that's just me. They can respond how they will. That said, we're gonna read a comment or two and then jump into our next story. Mouse in a Dragon onesie has been here for 41 months on Twitch and says, yay, 41 months with the Dragon Squad. Thank you, Mouse. Glad to have you here. T-Pain's been here for 22 months, says, so if you're not native, you're an immigrant. Folk who owned this land first weren't white, Nikki. Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, there's certain points that are fair to make and we'll never get through. And then the gifting begins again. Bernie, the Kiwi Dragon, gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, Bernie. As always, Anthony McClendon, once again, gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, Anthony, as well. And Benjamin Morrill has been a member for 19 months over on YouTube, which is much appreciated. And with that, let's turn now to this. Gavin Newsom has signed a bill into law that bars school districts in the state of California from requiring that schools notify parents if their child requests a pronoun change. The idea being, obviously, that there are kids who want to feel accepted and understood and like their life has value that don't necessarily feel that way at home. And so if you were to notify them, that potentially could be dangerous for them or could make it less likely that they feel comfortable in any environment coming out. And so he's passed this bill, and according to Elon Musk, that's it. That's the straw that broke multiple corporations back, and he is now moving the headquarters of both SpaceX and Twitter from California for that reason. And if he's saying that it's that reason, then that's the actual reason. It's not something else. He's not like weaselly blaming it on something. That's not the real reason. He would never do that. He says this is the final straw. Because of this law and the many others that preceded it, attacking both families and companies, SpaceX will now move its headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. He says, I did make it clear to Governor Newsom about a year ago that laws of this nature would force families and companies to leave California to protect their children. I don't know if that's true. It also has nothing to do with protecting children, but hey, more power to Gavin Newsom for not listening to him or not caring that that's what he said he would do. He also then added, and Twitter HQ will move to Austin. He didn't call it Twitter HQ, he called it something much stupider, but that is what it is. So anyway, he says, have had enough of dodging gangs of violent drug addicts just to get in and out of the building. Guarantee he gets in through either a private basement elevator or literally a helicopter. He is a goddamn liar. But anyway, he says he's doing this. We don't know for sure that that's what it is, that he is gonna do it. If he does, by the way, totally it's about taxes. It's about taxes, it's about lawsuits and all that stuff. It's not about this. But it is notable that he wants you to think it's about this. Elon Musk, of course, a guy who has decided to set fire to his reputation, to engage in culture wars, very similar to like a JK Rowling figure. He himself has a trans child. Believes that it's wrong to pass laws that try to make those people feel more accepted. Sharon, what are your thoughts?
He's so juvenile. He is the worst Richie Rich kid ever. He just is, okay? Threats, and you're right, it's a chopper. Guarantee you it's a chopper and it's something that is harming the environment. That's how he is getting to work. And I think Gavin Newsom, the governor, should have introduced something sooner. If this is all it takes to get him out of California, there's a lot of people that will be happy and they'll have to attract business elsewhere. Yeah, the taxes are too high. Yes, the cost of living is too high. But if Elon Musk will just leave, I don't live in California, so it's not really fair for me to say. But if I did, as a taxpayer, I'd say go for it. It's just, he's just so disingenuous. Again, what does your child think?
Yeah, look, we're gonna get back to this particular topic, but if this is the first thing that you're watching that is critical of Elon Musk, first of all, you've already clicked away. But if you haven't, welcome. Do you understand how much of a goddamn liar he is about literally everything? And if you don't believe so, how are you enjoying your $40,000 Cybertruck? How are you enjoying your new Tesla Roadster, which was supposed to come out literally years ago? No, just it goes on and on and on. There are things that don't work out the way you want, and then there are things that are lies when you tell them, because he shares with Donald Trump that he is a massive hype man. And hype is valuable. It helps companies. Actually, like following through on the hype, way more difficult and honestly not worth doing once you have a cult that already supports you. But anyway, as someone pointed out on Twitter, guarantee Linda Yaccarino had no idea about this until the tweet happened. She's the CEO, I believe, or one of the main executives of Twitter. And yeah, she almost certainly didn't. And I will ask you this, is this a way to run any business, let alone multiple businesses? Why is it that the shareholders are comfortable with this, of governance by knee-jerk reaction? But they do seem to be okay with it. And I want to end with fun. Gavin Newsom shared on Twitter this post from Donald Trump from, this was previous, I don't think this was on July 16th. He said this previously, but he said, when Elon Musk came to the White House asking me for help on all of his many subsidized projects, whether it's electric cars that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, true, or rocket ships to nowhere, without which subsidies he'd be worthless, and telling me how he was a big Trump fan and Republican, I could have said, drop to your knees and beg, and he would have done it. To which Gavin Newsom added, you bent the knee. But Elon Musk has the last laugh because he responded, you never get off your knees. Yeah. Burn. Yeah, he reminded you of that time you were torn to shreds by the guy you're now giving $45 million a month, who has done more than any other individual to make Americans hate the product your most profitable company sells. But you said he gives blowjobs, so burn. He's a 5-year-old. He's a dim-witted 5-year-old. 5-year-olds can have a sense of humor. He doesn't. He's not as good as the average 5-year-old. Sharon?
It's just, what are we supposed to do with this, okay? I have a 12-year-old that I love to complain this or that. She's a great kid, great grades, great kid, good person. But this is, I don't want to parent him, and I don't want to think about this, okay? There's no corner big enough that we can send this ego to. Enough of it.
I'm sure there is there's studies, there are probably books, but the two best case studies are Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling, and I'm sure there are others. They're like, we focus so much on how social media has broken the minds of like 14-year-olds in high school. We need to do more talk about how it's broken billionaires' minds. You have people that could be some of the most admired and successful people in the world that decided, I am going to set that on fire so that right-wing trolls will like my tweets. It's such a bizarre life path, but multiple billionaires, multiple of the richest people in the world have chosen to do exactly that. Seems strange. Anyway, we're gonna read a few comments before we get to probably our final story of the show. Llamas on Drugs says in a super chat, DeSantis has Dukakis tank energy, just a little guy. He does have little guy energy. And he actually served in the military. And yet still, little guy energy. He's got pudding cup energy, I think. Not a full bowl of pudding cup. Travel size. J-Dog has been here for 39 months on Twitch, says, what's up, dragons? Not much, what's up with you? Unprecedented Madness has been here for 10 months. Thank you so much. Sassy McSassface Dragon converted from Tribe sub to a tiered 1 sub. Thank you for being here. And Hayes Mel has been here for 40 months, says, good luck over there in the upcoming elections. Well, we'll see. There's still a lot of time for developments. And with that, we're gonna turn to our final story. We're gonna talk now about Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who I think is awesome. And she's my favorite. Where'd she go? I don't know. She's probably still around. But anyway, let's go to this.
You know, this is a time where we have to stand in truth. We have to speak truth. The enemy hates the truth. And every time you speak it, he is going to try to silence you. And this censorship, silencing of those who speak the truth is nothing new. Cancel culture is nothing new. You cannot cancel who God has called. They tried to cancel Jesus. You can't cancel God. Jesus laid down his own life. No one took his life. He laid that down for you and for me. And history repeats itself.
Okay, so obvious direct comparison there between Jesus and Donald Trump, which is interesting. Not the first time we've seen this, but I will say, full acknowledgement. I'm an atheist. I don't believe that Jesus was a literal historic figure, and even if he was not the Son of God. That said, I would assume that if you do believe in Jesus and you love and worship Jesus, I think he's supposed to be on top, and his sacrifice is like the most important sacrifice that the world has ever seen. And I don't think that a guy who got a boo-boo should be put on the same level. I don't think it's the same thing. I'm also not sure where she's getting down on them trying to cancel Jesus, because I'm pretty sure, didn't God want that? Because that like Jesus wanted to lay down his life. It's supposed to be a symbol and a sacrifice. And if they weren't trying to cancel him, then he couldn't have done that. So I think it was all according to plan, you know, mysterious ways and all that. But anyway, we're gonna have more for you. Let's jump into, this is Marjorie Greene with a similar sort of theological approach to this.
President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government.
I love that she seemed as surprised as the audience to bring up Jesus there. Like she said the word and she's like, Jesus. By the way, that was her boyfriend that was interviewing her right there, and I've seen him walking around multiple times at the convention. But anyway, I shouldn't have to explain to conservatives or Christians why it's absurd to draw a comparison between the two. There is no willing sacrifice here. Donald Trump has never willingly given up literally anything. He doesn't even self-fund his own campaign, which he could easily do with the billions of dollars he has. He didn't lay down his life. He survived through mere happenstance. That's it. I don't understand the comparisons there literally at all. But Sharon, what do you think of this?
Jesus is tired of this. I'm not Jesus's spokesperson, but Jesus is asking them to stop this, John. They've got to stop invoking. Jesus is busy doing other things. Jesus is not aligning Jesus with Trump and Marjorie and this nonsense and Boebert. They've got to stop this. Whether you believe or not, it's just disrespectful. And I'm telling you, I have it on good authority. Jesus is sick of this.
You want to hear something funny, or you want to
I
see
do.
someone squirm?
Yeah.
If you get a chance to talk to Donald Trump, I want you to ask him what his favorite quote by Jesus is.
New Testament,
on.
Old Testament. Yeah.
Best case scenario, you get like a Mr. T quote from the 80s or something. Like
I like
you're not
everything.
gonna get an actual quote. You're not gonna get
All
an
of it.
actual quote from him. And look, I think we should be free in America. That if you're an atheist, you don't believe in any of the religions, any of the higher power stuff, you should be free to run for office. Trump obviously doesn't, but he's not confident that others believe that because he clearly doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but he pretends to. And he doesn't even do a good job. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't have enough respect for Christians to actually like memorize a verse or two so that he can cite it when he's asked about it. And yet they still not only believe that he's a Christian, but will put him on the same level as Jesus Christ himself. Absurd. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for Big News Wednesday. Sharon, as always, pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine, and good luck there. You're doing a terrific job, and I mean it. It's fantastic. Great community here at TYT that we got it together and got you there. So thank you for all the coverage.
Thank you. I'm excited about it too. Okay, everybody, tomorrow we're gonna be mixing things up. Brett Ehrlich is gonna be joining me live here at the desk. We're gonna be given our garbage person of the RNC. We're each gonna be choosing one tomorrow as well, which will be a lot of fun. So definitely join us for that. I'm going to be doing RNC speech coverage after the Young Turks later on today. So you got that going for you as well. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.